The following video is gonna show how to ground the strings and shield the cavities of an electric guitar. Most cheaper and sometimes mid-priced guitars don't have shielded cavities and don't have grounded strings. This is going to greatly reduce the amount of noise that the guitar produces, especially on high gain settings on an amplifier. I'm going to show a demonstration of the reduction in noise that you can expect by shielding and grounding the strings. First, I'm going to quickly explain the difference between having your hands on the strings and off the strings. When you have your hands on the strings, there's always going to be less noise than when they're off the strings. But this difference is going to be much smaller if the strings are grounded. Ungrounded strings act like antenna, picking up surrounding signals, and this is then amplified on a high gain setting, producing a lot of noise. And when you touch the strings, then you are throwing away you're like grounding the strings through the conductivity of your body. When the strings are already grounded, that difference is going to be smaller. So I'm going to now show you a sound sample, the before and after, one with the hands touching the strings and one without touching the strings. In both cases the noise level is going to be reduced a lot. In fact, it's going to be, in my case, it's reduced by 13.9 decibels with no hands touching the strings, and there's a reduction of 3.7 decibels with the hands touching the strings. Now that you have seen a demonstration of the type of noise reduction you can expect, I'm gonna play a video which I filmed a year ago of me shielding and grounding the strings on a budget guitar that I bought. And the process is going to be the same for you with some minor differences. And that's mainly the way your guitar is constructed. You will have a different bridge, you will have a different check, your cavity will have a different shape, but the idea is the same. You're going to shield and ground that guitar, and it's not going to cost much money. You'll be able to use aluminum foil, which would be the absolute cheapest, and if you have access to it, you can use copper shielding tape or conductive paint. So here comes the video. A lot of budget guitars and sometimes expensive guitars as well don't have the strings grounded, and they don't have any shielding inside, which means they're a lot noisier than they could be. So this one's producing quite a lot of noise. It doesn't have any shieldings, its strings are not grounded, and if I take my hands off the string, it instantly gets very loud. If I put them on, it's quiet again, and when recording or playing, that's a nuisance. And even when the fingers are on the strings, it's producing quite a lot of noise. This can easily be fixed by shielding the cavities and grounding the bridge, which is attached to all the strings. First I'm gonna have to slacken all the strings to get access. Strings are loose and out of the way. You can remove them completely if you like, or just move them out of the way. Either way is fine. Now, depending on the guitar that you have, you might need to remove the pick guard to get access. On some guitars you need to access from behind. This one doesn't have a pick guard, it doesn't need access from behind. So I'm going to remove the bridge because I need to create access to the cavity, and I'm going to remove the pickup because I'm going to shield the pickup cavity. Just figured out this bridge can just be lifted out. Doesn't even need to have the height adjusted, which is quite good. Removing the pickup. Pickup's coming out. Taking the screws away. And removing the jack, because this cavity needs to be shielded as well, and the ground is going to be connected to the jack of the lead, to the part of the jack that goes to the lead's ground. And the jack's coming out. In here is the cavity, which needs to be shielded as well. The bridge has to make contact with the sleeve of the jack, which is the grounding part of the jack, either indirectly or directly. So it can connect through the shielding or through a direct wire. Usually a direct wire is used because it's a way to make sure that the contact is good. So in this case, there's the wood between the pickup cavity and the bridge cavity, and there needs to be a physical channel that goes over to the bridge, and through that channel has to go a metal part. Usually that would be a wire, and that wire normally attaches to the bridge's post, and the bridge will sit on that post. And if your bridge is made of stainless steel, it'll be all metal contact to the strings. If your bridge is painted, there can be certain problems because paint is an insulator. So in this case, this painted bridge did not make contact. Even though the post was grounded out of the factory, it never actually contacted the strings because it was insulated on every step of the way. There was paint between the post and the bridge, there was paint between the saddles and the bridge, and there was paint between the string and the saddle groove. So I had to sand away the paint inside of the bridge pole. I sanded away the paint inside of the screw where the saddle touches the bridge, and I've sanded away the paint in the grooves that touch the strings. So now every part of the bridge has metal on metal contact, and therefore there's an electrical path all the way from the strings to the sleeve of the jack, which is here. And that's where your lead goes, and then the ground goes to your other electronics. And it looks like that this post from the bridge is grounded. If I touch the continuity, it makes a noise, but somehow doesn't go all the way to the strings, whether it's paint on here or on a post or grease, which I'm gonna have to find out. Now from the post here, which is supposed to be grounded, it doesn't make very well contact except on certain areas, and it definitely doesn't make contact with the actual bridge, even though it's inside. If I go over here, there's no continuity, so even though the post itself is grounded, the bridge is not grounded. I think if this was a stainless steel bridge, it wouldn't matter because it'd be metal contacting metal, but it's been painted black and the color is an insulator, and that's why it's not connecting. So I'm going to sand off a little bit of the paint on the post so that it will be connecting. Now on the bridge where the strings touch, you can see it's metallic, which means it's making contact, but some of these other ones still have the black paint on it. So I'm going to use a little bit of sandpaper, or if you have an appropriate nut file you can use that. Don't grind it down, just scrape a little bit of the paint off so that the metal of the string touches the metal of the bridge. The way I do it, you go like that with the sandpaper on an angle, scrape a little bit of that side and then a little bit of the other side. Just gotta have that on each, so it has that V shape, just without the paint. Don't sand off the metal, just the paint to get to the metal, because you don't want to ruin it. This two-nomadic bridge also had the saddles of the lower strings the wrong way around, which I think they did because of lack of space, but mine's actually been hitting that end, so I am turning them around while I'm at it. So I've just pulled that out. I take this screw all the way out and then put it in the other way around. This would actually be the correct way. If you have a two-nomadic bridge with these wrong way around, you can correct that, unless you need more space going the other way, then you're probably gonna want to leave them the wrong way around. I've taken this wire out, which holds these in place, and I'm taking out these pieces, and I'm doing a little bit of sanding the paint off the tip of that screw so that it will make contact metal on metal with the bridge rather than paint on metal or paint on paint, to make sure that the strings have good contact. I will just be sanding the tips a little bit off like that all the way around, and it makes a difference when I continuity test it with the multimeter. It makes contact, whereas before it actually did not. Just removing the jack with a soldering iron, just so that I can get more easily to the cavity, but you can also work around if you don't want to do that. It's just a little bit easier if I get it off. So now I'm pulling the pickup out so that I can place it out of the way. I'm going to pull the wire in. I'm going to take that sticker up because I don't need it. This is where the shielding stuff is going to go. In order to shield the guitar, you can use shielding paint, which is a graphite carbon paint which is conductive, or you can use copper shielding tape, which is also conductive, or you can also use aluminum foil, just normal aluminum foil for the kitchen, which works just as well. In order to paint this cavity and the channel that goes in to the pickup cavity and this cavity here, I'm going to use this Q-tip as a brush and use the graphite carbon paint just because it's the easiest way. But if you want to, you can use aluminum foil or the copper tape to line this. Depending on the guitar, these cavities are going to have different shapes and you can choose whichever one you like. So I've painted the inside, all of the graphite carbon paint, and I went outside the border a little so that it's going to touch the cover and make contact with that. And I have painted the channels through here. Now for the pickup cavity, I've decided to go for the copper paint, and I'm gonna got these several thicknesses. I'm going to cut it to the right size and put it in there. I'm going to put in the copper tape. I'm going to work my way to the edge. Now I've worked the floor in there, and I'm going to use this thinner one to go around the edge of the cavity. I have finished putting the copper foil in here, and I've put some graphite paint in the corner because there's just some little bits that weren't covered by the copper because it was quite awkward. So I put a bit of that in there. I put a second coat in here, and the lid where the jack goes, I've taken it off and I've put some copper foil on it. And when I put that back on here, because I went around the edge with the paint, so the copper is going to touch it when I put it on there, and it'll all be shielded. Now I'm going to drill a hole into this cavity to put the screw into it. I'm gonna go for this drill instead. Now I'm gonna put the screw into that hole. And the purpose of the screw is to hold onto the wire which goes to ground, which is this wire. I might actually take it out and wrap it around first. It's good to have sort of a screw with a flat head, sort of sheet metal type screws. I'm going to wrap the wire around it and then screw it in. This is going to make very good ground contact. It should make contact anyway, but it's always good to make double sure. Putting the pickup back into the cavity and pull the ground wire through the bridge, ground wire and the wire from the pickup. I've closed the guitar again. Now I'm gonna check the continuity. The ground from the jack. It's connected to the cavity and the pickup, to the bridge and to every string there is, which wasn't before. Now that the guitar is finished with the grounding the strings and shielding, it is a lot quieter. It is on the same setting, on the same high gain setting. And there's a little bit of hiss, but nowhere near as much as before. And when I put my hands on the strings, it's even quieter. If the bridge is not grounded at all, you have to drill a hole inside through the wood and attach a wire to the metal of the bridge itself. That's it.